Are we? Yep. Looks like we're rolling now. I hope there's no technical difficulties going out there into cyberspace. Uh, welcome to another installment of Sunday Night KloobySnacks. Yeah, the signal doesn't look that strong. We might have to troubleshoot in real time because you look a little bit glitchy to me. I look okay on my side, but Abigail, how do I look to you? Do I look glitchy to you?
You look better now. But you were
Better
glitchy.
now? Okay. You look a little glitchy to me. Hopefully that irons itself out. But we're here for another installment of KloobySnacks. And by now, everybody should know there's 52 of these. It's made for social media. So we're coming online every Sunday night to read all 52 KloobySnacks. What's a KloobySnack? It's either my wife's homemade cookies or my motivational quotes. And all of it shows up here in KloobySnacks. The forward to the book is the recipe to my wife's homemade cookies, the original KloobySnack, and then 52 motivational quotes, 48 of which Abigail has responded to journal style, and 52 divided by 4 is 13. So that gave us baker's dozen on the baking and passing down the recipe theme. And we're within 90 days, Abby, of you taking off to Fordham. So welcome to another installment. Tonight is week number 21. I might have some overview stuff to go over before we get into tonight's snack, but we were talking about this earlier today around the dining table. Me, you, and Mom, we were sitting there having a really cool conversation, and it was fun and it was light, but we were all a little emotional too. And I just want to ask you, we're inside of 90 days before you take off to Fordham. We started working on this book before we even knew you'd be getting in to Fordham. Yeah. And now we're within 90 days of you going. How do you feel?
It's weird. It's all like setting in now. And like I've known about my acceptance, and I've been committed since December. So it's been a long time, but it always felt so far away. Like it was like, when I found out, it was like I had like 10 months until I was gonna be there, but now it's like it's all setting in. It's so real, and it's a weird feeling, and it's like it's bittersweet. Like I'm so excited to leave, but now it's like also like the feeling of leaving is also setting in too. So it's weird, but I'm really excited. I'm really excited.
That's great. It's it's wonderful to feel it. And then of course I send out an email to my my email database. I send out like a little clues letter every Sunday night to my email database. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh no, I forgot to write the clues letter today. So after our conversation, I just wrote from the heart, stream of consciousness, and basically the email. And I might pull it up later and read it out loud if we get into it. But basically, it was all around the 2 confessions, right? And so maybe I'll leave that as a cliffhanger. Maybe we'll come back to it later on because it ended up being cute and heartfelt. And this project, I want you to know, has made it a lot easier for me to look within. It's easier and more fun for me to look within it myself and listen to myself and learn from myself and laugh at myself and get real about stuff. And today was kind of a real day, feeling the emotion of within 90 days of you going away. So just to get back to the book, there's 4 baker's dozens, and we already covered the first baker's dozen, all 13 of those KloobySnacks, and we're not going to review those, but we're like right in the middle of almost in the second half. The second baker's dozen. So the first baker's dozen was loving flavored. Now we're in ego flavored, sense of self. How do we what's our sense of ourself? How do we do we sense ourselves, right? Are we honest when sensing ourselves? Do we just protect ourselves, or all of that stuff, all of those issues that we're grappling with, again, on the path to making it easier and more fun to look within. So as a matter of review, we started this section with KloobySnack number 14, surrender is not the same thing as defeat. Then we moved on to number 15, ego defense is an emotional fight or flight response. And we elaborated on that the following week with number 16, our judgments are an aggressive form of ego defense, the fight instead of the flight, right? Or the play dead. I guess there's a third way to protect ourselves, which is playing dead, maybe even a fourth way. That I'm not going to cite here. Number 17, you cannot laugh at others unless you can laugh at yourself. That's kind of familiar. A lot of people are familiar with that. But what we added to that made it KloobySnackalicious is, and if you love laughing at others, perhaps it's because you don't love yourself. All right. That's a little bit heavy. We take a deep breath and move on. Number 18, we are usually guilty of the accusations we project onto others. That's not far away, really, from laughing at others because we don't love ourselves. And then before we look within and take care of our own stuff, we find it in other people and throw those accusations out there. It's all we all do it, right? We shouldn't ignore it or deny it or be ashamed of it. It's human nature. What we want to do is be honest about we can improve upon it or minimize the effects or apologize quicker or, that's the idea, right? So moving on to number 19, asking questions does not reveal our intelligence nearly as much as failing to ask will. The only thing is a dumb question is the one that goes unasked, right? That type of thing. And then last week we did the curse of knowledge. Without typing out the whole thing, the curse of knowledge is when we're so familiar with something, we've forgotten what it's like not to know. That creates a lot of problems in terms of our communication. But Abby, you were so wise last week to add new perspective on this snack, right? Where you're talking about like, oh, I remember really wanting to know, and now I know that I'm not motivated to know. What a difference. And then how that affects performance, etc. So when I wrote the snack, it was in the context of encoding our ideas, using jargon and using language of expertise, and then it being lost on somebody who doesn't understand what we know, right? So I was just talking about encoding and decoding, but you really took it a step deeper and wider to self-motivation, desire, commitment, and then performance, right? All of that was super, super cool. So that brings us to KloobySnack number 21. You have any comments about those review of snacks before we get into 21?
Not that I can think of right now, but maybe I will come up with something as we go.
Okay. All right. So without any further ado, I like to screen share on when we get to the snack part. Yeah, partly so people can see like what the inside of the book looks like, right? Because that's kind of cool. We're proud of that. And then partly so people can read along with us, even though I know and that people can read faster than it takes somebody else to read. You know what I mean? Like when you can see the words, you can read them to yourself faster than it takes somebody else to read it out loud. But let me go ahead and make sure I'm pulling up the right thing is what I want to do. I want to make sure we're on the right PDF here. So getting into it, drum roll, please. KloobySnack number 21 is on the board, and I'm still going to read it when I window. Okay, there we go. KloobySnacks. And so let's move to number 21 past. Yeah, I like to spend time on the design. It's so much fun, especially the cookie jars. Right? So ego flavored. And as I mentioned, we went through the progression of snacks 14 through 21 is where we're at tonight. And then here we go. Ready? So the snack itself, people who, and by the way, I want to preface this actually before I do want to preface this by saying when I set the calendar invite for the KloobySnacks tonight, because I invite a lot of people to come online live, right? I'm just going to read this real quick. Let me see if I can. Because here's the thing, Abby. I'm going to talk about this for a second, and then I'll read it word for word. This snack is one of just a couple of KloobySnacks that by the time we get around to like posting it and doing the live stream, I actually like most of them I'm really proud of, but every now and then there's a couple, maybe 5 total in the whole book, where I'm like, God, I would have reworded that differently, or I would have worded that differently. Why did we word it like that? Why did we settle for that? We could have done better than that. And then sometimes I'm like, God, I don't even know if I agree with what we've written here. So what I want to say is I'm going to screen share this, and I'm going to read this word for word. And then we'll get to the snack and your reading of it, right? So this is like the clues letter that I sent out to my database, right? And it's like, look, this week begs another splash of honesty because we're talking about the confessions that I have to make. I'll talk about that in a minute, right? When I admit there are a couple of KloobySnacks among the 52 total that I'm not sure I fully agree with. Maybe less than 5 or so, but they exist. The snacks that seem to make sense, seem to bring excitement, seem to fit in the particular baker's dozen we grouped it in when we were immersed in producing the book. But upon rereading it now that the book is published, I find myself cringing over how some of the KloobySnacks were worded, knowing I could have worded them better or we could have worded them better. Some of them we did word better, in fact. So like why other ones that seem weird to me now after the fact, or a new disagreement with myself as to whether or not I truly believe what the snack is suggesting. So this week, I'm going to, when we read the snack, just pay attention. We use the word always, and I'd probably rather usually than always. And then we'll take a look at what the rest of the snack has to say. So keep that in mind, Abigail. I'm going to want to get your perspective on that as we go through it, because this is just maybe it's happened twice so far this year. And so I'm expecting it to happen another 2 or 3 times the rest of the book. But basically the snack is people who lack self-confidence always feel intimidated by a true leader. That's the snack. We know what we meant when we came up with it. I can't wait to hear what you have to say here, but I'm looking forward to our discussion afterwards. Go ahead.
Okay. Jealousy is a disease. Seeing people who have things that you desire can lead to hatred, dislike, or remorse. Our insecurities tend to bring out the worst of ourselves due to true jealousy. When we see someone with the confidence that we do not have, we tend to not admire for their ability to lead, but rather find ways to compensate for our lack of confidence. People will try to bring down leaders, labeling them as full of themselves, overconfident, cocky. Rather than trying to observe them and adopt traits that build their leadership skills, we attempt to manipulate their skills into something negative. The ability to lead can be difficult to harness, but jealousy makes it quite easy to bring others down. Recognizing that your feelings of intimidation stem from insecurity is the first step to admiring a leader rather than fearing them.
All right. Now, we have a couple of things to talk about now, because just standalone, even as I hide this here and we just look at your little blog here, jealousy is a disease. If we forget the snack, I'm not sure I'd have much to argue with in terms of what you wrote here, right?
Yeah.
And I love that the KloobySnack provoked what you've written here, right? But let me ask you, like, do you see what I'm trying to get at here? Like, look at the way this is worded, and do you see what's hard to agree with fully about it, or is that just me?
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. I think the always, I don't know if it's like a definitive, like people who lack self-confidence will always be intimidated. I think that a lack of confidence can lead to like a tendency to be intimidated, or like it can lead to it, but it's not like a definitive, like always, you know?
Yeah. That's the first thing, like, you know, and it was a little surprising to me that we didn't catch it in the first go around. I mean, I think more highly of, you know, like I practice humility all the time, but I think highly enough of us, you and I, that I would have expected us to catch something like that, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to promote critical thinking. We're trying to promote asking questions. We're trying to promote, you know, multiplicity of possibility, to keep open-minded and that's our flag that we're waving. So to use a word like always here is a little bit absolute, right? And to quote Star Wars, right? Only Sith Lords think in absolutes, right? So we want to be Jedis, right? We want to be, you know, keepers of justice, right? Although now even the Star Wars canon is like confusing about what side are we on, and who's right and who's moral and who's not. Is pretty good. The Andor is a really good series for really playing with that. But back to what we're talking about. Let's talk more about your blog, and how do you feel about the jealousy, you know, the jealousy piece that you were writing about now? Has anything changed? Have you evolved? Do you have anything to add or any anecdotes? I'm going to go back to screen sharing it, because I think it's good to maybe capture some of your words here. Jealousy is a disease. So like, is that it, just because like dis-ease, like jealousy is a status of being uneasy, or do you mean like disease like spreads and is date?
I remember how it spreads and how like the jealousy then it leads to all these other like things, you know what I mean? But how like the cause of a lot of these issues tends to be jealousy.
Yeah, and so it's very interesting. I have a well, let me hear you elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah, for most of the KloobySnacks, when I'm writing about stuff, it's normally like I'm like on like the guilty end, but this is like one of the ones where I feel like doesn't necessarily apply to me. I think I have always been like a very confident person, very secure in myself, and for that reason, I've felt like other people have been intimidated by my confidence, and I think that probably goes the same for you, Dad. But like when I'm in like the second paragraph, I talk about how like people like label like leaders as like full of themselves and like overconfident, and like I've been like labeled as that like multiple times by people that like don't have the confidence to lead, or they like in their behavior shows that they evidently aren't like secure within themselves. So yeah, this is one of the ones where I was like on the other end of, but I think that like you can relate to that, where it's like your confidence and like how like you are clearly like you're very like secure in yourself and who you are, and how other people see that as like negative or just overconfident or like whatever it is. People like find all these like ways to like jab at that confidence when it's like they just it comes from the insecurity or the lack of the confidence, you know what I mean?
I've definitely felt that. What's interesting too is that I feel plenty insecure at times as well, right?
Mhm.
Or I feel like I've got my tail between my legs, or I see the people that have things that I don't have, or have done things I haven't done, right? But for me, and this is what I want to offer you in the world, right? And I think that it's wonderful that I mean, of the two, which would I rather, right? I'd rather you have the confidence and have the experience of being jabbed at. Uncle Sherby, if you know Sherby, John Blyer, he and I used to come up with sayings like, and I remember I used to have the saying, rule number one is know yourself, right? And we had subtext to it that I would wordsmith these words and these platitudes and these universal truths. I've been doing this for a long time, right? Even before I was married, in the 90s, back when, anyway, with Sherby, rule number one, know yourself. We came up with subtext, and it was funny too. It was metaphorical. It was like, he would say, are you ready? Don't stray too far from your wafer. And like your wafer, meaning like you're the thing that keeps you afloat. Right. And then we would joke around about like, yeah, man, well, that person's strutting a fat wafer. Like that person's got a lot of confidence. So with that paper, they're riding a thinny. They're, like a thin wafer versus a fat wafer used to be like our little inside jokes about who was confident and who wasn't. Right. And then we would begin to like take it even a step further, which is what you're saying, which is like, oh man, it's unfortunate that people with thin wafers, instead of fattening their own wafer, they want to nibble off of yours.
Yeah.
Right. So people either want to ride your coattails and get credit for work that you're doing, or take you down, because either of those somehow seem like better options than just inflating oneself.
Yeah.
Right. And for you and I to be able to have this conversation right now, because guess what? Get ready. It's never right. And so how do you got to like not be mad at people? And that's why I don't like this word always, as if we're mad at, what we want to do is not could be adversarial to the person that lacks confidence, but we want to do to build their confidence without straying from what our intentions, our capabilities are, right? So we're writing a balance. And so let me ask you a question. What do you think it's multi-determined, we know from the KloobySnacks, but tell me what you think makes you a true leader. What do we mean by true leader versus untrue leader versus kind of forced leader or grown leader, natural leader, born leader? Let's talk about your perceptions on leadership for a second.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one part of it is like as an individual being like a strong individual, because but it's difficult to be a strong leader for others when it's like, as an individual, like not take the rest of the group or partnership away. As an individual, if you can't lead yourself, you don't know yourself. And I think that I am very confident, and I think I know who I am, and I think I've always been that way. And so like there's that first, just like as like an individual being strong enough to lead yourself and to know yourself, understand yourself. But then also I think that and you too have like the empathy and like the willingness and like ability to understand others and consider others, and I think that comes from being so secure in myself that, like, I can focus on others or think about things from other perspectives because like as an individual I am like secure. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's and then like leadership. I've studied leadership. I've considered like a leadership trainer, like I train leaders with the skill sets of coaching and other soft skills that leaders need to, again, be more empathetic rather than authoritarian, or there's like, we talk about this with VPOL all the time. Like, we don't lead by coercion, we don't lead by manipulation, we don't lead by force, we don't lead with sticks and carrots, right? We lead with love, our willingness to be vulnerable, our willingness to empathize, our willingness to customize an agenda in order to meet the person where they're at, right? There's another colleague that I've interacted with recently from Education 2.0, Dolores, and she says we lead from whatever seat we're in. Yeah. Right. So there's a lot of things. A lot of times people confuse leader with loud, or leader with extrovert, or leader with the strongest. And that's not necessarily truth. To me, leadership is the collection of things that get people from A to B, that move things forward, that lead. So it could be an idea, it could be a person, it could be a resource, it could be a report, it could be a question, could be leadership, right? Asking the right question, right? So it's the collection of things. And so, a true leader, the way back to like the way that we were, posing the snack, the KloobySnack, it's like, wow, like would I have used the word true? Would I use the word right? A true leader, that, right? Well, you know what I'm saying? Like there's so many things that we can unpack here. We left it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think that it's almost like I almost want to be so self-critical, say that this almost reads a little judgmental of anybody that has ever been intimidated by our leadership, if I have to really look within and get super honest. And so as I'm putting it out there, I was like, ooh, I was a little cringy about it. You know what I'm saying? Are you with me on this?
Yeah.
All right. I want to go back to your jealousy piece for a second. And I'm wondering, I don't know, I've never tried to do this before, where I've tried to present or screen share, and I don't know if the audio will come through. But what I'm going to give it a try anyway. Share screen, right? Don't show these tips look good. Follow these steps to share a video with audio. Let me see if that's too confusing. Please note, share screen, present, click share your screen, automatically add. If you have the automatically setting turned on, well, you'll tell me, all right? You'll tell me if this works, okay? We're going to go, I think we're going to go here. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
What do you see, by the way? Do you see the list of flyby coaching videos?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So, these are the flyby coaching videos that I used to do when I was on the plane, going around all over the world a couple of years back. And what I'm hoping will play, you'll let me know, is Mind the Gap. What's the difference between not hearing and listening? Mind the Gap. What's the difference between... It's jealousy and admiration. It's probably earlier. Gratitude and appreciation. It's probably earlier. Jealousy and admiration. Goals versus... There it is. Number 5. The 5th flyby coaching video I ever posted. Can you still see my screen? Do you see the video?
Yep.
Do you see it or hear it? I'm curious. You see the video? Do you hear it coming through? Hang on.
No.
What about now?
No.
What? Did you hear it?
No.
You do or don't? I can't tell.
No.
No? All right. Well, I'm going to abort. Okay. So basically, I did a flyby coaching video on this, and it was all about basically what's the difference between jealousy and admiration. And I think that you said it, right, Abigail, when I was talking about leadership and what's your definition of leader, you're basically like, well, I believe in myself. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's the difference between, if I'm jealous of someone, that means I do not believe in myself that I can either get what they have or get what I want. So I'm jealous. That vibration of jealous, it's a negative, right? Mm-hmm. Versus if I admire somebody that doesn't have, that has something that I don't have. If I admire them, I'm in admiration. To me, that vibrates with, I believe in myself. I know I can get either what they have or what I want. And I'm happy that they have it. I'm admired, like kind of inspired, like I'm glad, right? But rather than seeing somebody that has something that I don't have and seeing that as a reflection and a negative commentary on myself, that's jealousy. Whereas admiration is inspired by people that go get what they want, right? Yeah. And so I think that you never knew. I don't think I've ever explained that to you, but then somehow you know that, right? That's the difference, is belief in self, right? And that's what we're talking, self-confidence, right? We could be self-doubting a little bit. We can be, nervous about an outcome. But belief in self doesn't mean that we're always going to succeed 100% of the time. But belief in self means we're going to give it a try when we need to give it a try. We need to go for it. We lead ourselves. I also liked how you talked about that self-leadership. Can you say more about self-leadership and either as it relates to belief in self or just leadership overall? Can
you be more specific? What's
Yeah, or give me examples. Like when you say self-leadership, I can lead myself. Like I know who I am, I know what I want, so that other people that don't, that could be off-putting to people that don't know who they are and what they want. Talk to me about self-directing and making sure you get where you want to go. Fordham is a big example, right? But there's many, many others. Can you talk about times where you've decided what you've wanted and you've gone ahead and led yourself to it?
Yeah, well, I think that well part of it, like, I think I always like I'm not like a group thinker. I've always like kind of stayed away from that. I like to hear other people's opinions, but I'll
Hmm.
never really let an opinion just because it has more numbers on it sway like what I believe. And I've always been very opinionated and very loud about my opinions, um and I stay true to that. I don't get swayed easily by groups or what the majority opinion or the most popular opinion or whatever else is like leading to. And that I've always kind of just been able to think on my own, therefore like be on my own. Even when it's like with like small things, with like choosing classes. Like I know like throughout like high school, like I've had friends and they're like, okay, let's all like pick these classes together. And I have some people that are like really good writers that picked the lower level writing classes to be with like their friends. And it's like I'd rather be alone in my really hard writing classes than go down to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think
Well,
I am pretty secure in what I want and what I deserve and what I believe, and I'm never gonna stray away from that for like validation from a group or for, you know what I mean? I don't need that. I don't really seek that sort of validation, and I'm able to stay true to like what I know I want, need, deserve. Any of, you know?
yeah. It's just rare, right, to find somebody. So I don't know, rare. It's not impossible. I guess maybe I compare it to myself when I was your age. I wasn't as clear, wasn't as focused about, I knew I wanted to get out. I knew I wanted to move away. I knew I wanted, you know what I mean? But little things along the way. And there's so much of my life, even as early as this week, like, what do I want? And where am I going with my life? You know what I mean? I joke, but I think it's something special that you've that sense of self-leadership. You've always been, like able, like there's this saying by Dr. Seuss, right? The ones that mind don't matter, and the ones that mattered won't mind, right? Like whereas, a lot of people are selling themselves short, doing what everybody else is doing, afraid to make choices on their own, waiting for other people to decide for them, and that's just right. So it's great to be inspired by other people, but carve your own path. Yeah, I'm in admiration of you, Abby.
Yeah.
And what else you got there? You got something else?
I think some of this like it dates back to like obviously when I was younger and how like I remember mom pointed out to me how when I was going into first grade, she sent me long like Girl Scout camp, and she like took me and like dropped me off on my own. And when she was there to drop me off like by myself, like I was like 5 years old going away for a week, like everybody else that was getting dropped off was all like in their groups of their friends or like as like pairs like getting dropped off. And I remember mom was like, she was telling me that she was, when I came, as like years later, that she was like worried, and she was like, I'm sending her off like by herself. But like I was completely fine with it, and I made friends, and I'm still friends with some of these people. We exchanged all contact information, and I think I've always been able to go off by myself and like, not worry about not finding people or I think I'm very independent, and I'm every time like for like these girls, I've done a lot of these Girl Scout camps. I would go off and I wouldn't go to the camp with any friends, and I would come back with multiple. And I remember mom pointing out to me that she was always so like worried going off alone, especially being so young. Was like going off in groups and had all these people, and I didn't have anybody, and I never even like thought twice about that, But I think that from a young age. I don't really know where it came from. I don't know if it's just like, oh, I was just born that way, or if it's from you or from what it is, but I've always been able to just be on my own. And like that allows me to think on my own and to make choices based off of like what I want rather than lessening like my goals just to match somebody else's. But I've always been able to actually to go off on my own path where others are on other paths in groups, or like when they're going on their paths with like security of who's around them or whatever, but I'm able to kind of just wander and like to what I want, you know what I mean?
Yeah, in my observation, you've had the a little bit of the best of both, right? I've seen you with Girl Scouts and sports teams and theater. I've seen you fit into groups and cultures and institutions and teams, but you're a trailblazer. Like I've known for a long time, right? Like I said, it's like, I know that we're just going to have to get out of your way. I know that you've got to get out of here and you've got to go. And we know that I've always said, like, you'd be bored anywhere other than New York City. It's got to be the brightest, busiest, biggest. And even then, I'm worried if it's big enough for you, right? We just hope, and I think that KloobySnacks is a really neat icon. And by the way, I love having over the shoulder the poster board from the event that we did and sold some books. We hope that we've shaped a good enough path. We hope that that's what this is. So much of this is about is like, hey, is she ready? Have we done enough? Are we good? Do we have, and Mary, I hope she doesn't mind me saying so. And I hope you don't mind me saying so, because I know where I'm coming from on this. But Marianne casually earlier today said, she walked by and she just said, a year ago, we wouldn't have been able to have that conversation. And she just said it very, not to stand still and get into, but she was just like, and we're really proud of you, and if you remember how things were in the junior year is kind of stressful, right? For a lot of different reasons. And it was just lovely for us to just sit there and have a nice conversation with you about the future. It was just really, really cool. So I'm going to soak up every one of these last 90 days or whatever before you move off. And we still get you on the live stream once a week once you go. I'm really looking forward to that, by the way. I can't wait till the first one from New York City. And you want to know what's weird is that I might be at the airport, you know what I mean? Or we might have to do a special time. We might have to do it like live from your dorm, or because that's going to be a Sunday that we're dropping you off at the dorm. So that's going to be a special edition night of KloobySnacks. Like, we'll figure it out, even if we have to do it the night after or the night before. But you're going to have plenty on your plate in terms of orientation and meeting friends and uber distraction. So I think we stick to doing it Sunday night, and that's like a little swan song. But anyway, we're going to dance our way closer, and it's wonderful to do it in a healthy way, in a vulnerable way, in a loving way. The conversations are mature. The hugs are genuine. The guard is down. The mind is open. The heart is open. It's just wonderful. And today was a little reflection of that. So if I can, I want to read this to you now, Abby. It's kind of I told you about my two confessions, right? But I want to kind of read them and share them kind of like bravely with the world and see if this lands, right? So I have two confessions to make. Hello, name, because this went out to the email, right? So it's dads and grad season with commencement ceremonies taking place all over the country, and Father's Day will follow shortly in a couple weeks. And as we anticipate our daughter's high school graduation, I made some big progress this week, getting clarity on moving Abby to Fordham University in New York City later this year. Is a screenshot of like figuring out the financial aid and the $90,000 we got to come up with minus your award and all of that. So I got the financial aid information I needed, filled out the promissory notes, set up the delegate accounts online so Marianne and I can both log in to Abby's student profile, admin only, from our own computers with our own passwords, right? That's a joke for parents out there that know what it's like. Well, your password or my password or who's logged in or send me the password, and none of that. We're set, right? Anyway, so we can see info, make payments, see grades, all of that good stuff. And I have two confessions to make. Number one, I found myself browsing through the curriculum of courses as if I was an incoming freshman myself, as if I was a journalism pre-law major at a very prestigious university in the middle of New York City. I was browsing class titles in the core curriculum in her major just before completely going down the living vicariously through my children rabbit hole. I snapped out of it just before going down the vicariously living. Right? I snapped out of it, but only long enough to earn my second confession. That should be confession anyway. The email already went out. I found myself browsing through faculty openings at Fordham as if I was moving to New York and my first piece of stabilization would be an adjunct position in the communication department at a very prestigious university in the middle of New York City, right? There it is, screenshot, part-time faculty, communication and media studies, right? I've actually been here before, teaching at the same university that my child attends college. It wasn't planned. It was super coincidental. The way I was offered classes at San Diego State the semester before my son began his freshman year there, completely unrelated and completely unfulfilling compared to what I had imagined. I had wasted dozens of hours waiting around on campus, hoping my son would come by to say hello or join me for a meal. The embarrassing text messages I would send him, quote, "Hey, I'm all done with classes, checking in to see what you're up to before I head home," quote, that got no reply. He was in college doing his thing, burdened by, unnecessarily burdened.
No.
Oh, man.
No. B-U-R?
Yeah, I got it. Should be.
No, that's burdened. Take the
Yeah.
ophthalmology.
I got it now. It's so funny. Burdened unnecessarily by my unchecked desire to live vicariously through him, or inability to truly let go. The truth is, I do wish I was doing what my kids are doing. I do wish I had the opportunities and support they have that I didn't. The truth is that it is difficult to cut the umbilical cord emotionally. And where I was completely disillusioned in fall 23, spring 24, that being on campus, teaching classes would somehow result in seeing my son more often or being closer to his college experience or experience as a college baseball player, I realize now that it was just prolonging the inevitable. They grow up, they grow out, they outgrow, and there's nothing we can do to stop it, including going with them. So I confess to the very difficult time my wife and I have, my wife and I having emotionally, my wife and I are having emotionally right now as we enter the final 90 days of our daughter living at home. The final 90 days of this stage phase of meaning we will have in our life. On August 24th, it all changes. Marianne and I will get back on a plane to San Diego without her. Confessing somehow makes it a little easier. I looked up her classes and opened teaching positions in her major. I confess. I did. I confess. So, yeah, we love you more than you'll know. And the whole letting go thing is hard, but it's beautiful and it's wonderful. We have arrived at last call. Last call. Anything, right? Anything you want to say? Like, Abby, you get the last,
No,
the last word.
I'm not surprised about you looking at my classes. That doesn't surprise me. Like that, I expected that. Multi positions is a little confused. I would make more sense if I was going somewhere closer, if I was in California at all, but faculty positions at a school across the country.
I just looked. I didn't apply. I just looked.
I hope you didn't apply.
I just imagined, I mean, but the point of me sharing that with you is it's going to be every bit as difficult as it was with AJ. You're the second child, right? But there's some things about it that are going to be harder because you're further away. But what I'm trying to pledge to you, I guess, is that there's something easier. I have a little bit of wisdom now. I have a little experience. I have a little humility. And so, yeah, I'll look up the position, but I won't apply. Do you know what I mean? I'll read your classes, but I hope you share the syllabus with me. I hope you talk about assignments with me. I do want to be as close to it as possible and for you to share as much of it as possible. It is an amazing experience that, it's hard for me to imagine being able to do something like that. So it's real. Like, hopefully parents, we want our kids to be as independent as quickly as possible. Hopefully parents, we want our kids to outshine us. We want them to outgrow us. We want them to do better, be better, get more evolved, more knowledge, more experience, more of the world, making bigger impact, have a larger contribution, whatever we want, right? And so as we see you get more than what we did or do more or be in a better position, it's really hard not to want to go with you. Like, oh, that's so cool. I want to go. I want to check that out. You just happen to be studying something that I would have studied. AJ just happened to be playing a sport that I would have loved to have played. I think that's fascinating that both of you are doing something that makes me super in admiration, not just, but in admiration.
Yep. Just don't apply.
All right. Well, last call. Anything else before you? Oh, look, we got some comments here. Shri says, very insightful. Thank you. Shri says, amazing. Some guy's asking how old you are. And no, we're not going to put that on there, dude. Franco, get a life. I'm kidding. Right? She's 17. I'll tell you that right now. So, Franco, thank you for joining us. We hope that we're adding to your ability to, look within. That's what we want to do here on KloobySnacks, is make it fun and easy for people to look within. So Abigail's 17 years old, and going on 35, but that's not the point of my comment in response to yours. We're grateful for everybody tuning in. We just want to keep it respectful. Abigail and I knew that we'd be taking a chance having her on social media once a week, so please respect what we're doing here. It's a father-daughter thing, and respectful. Last call, Abby. What do you got? Anything else before we dismiss for tonight? No. All right. Nope. Well, that does it for KloobySnack number 21. It was a great conversation tonight. I'm already looking forward to next week, number 22, as we inch towards week by week. We're very close to the halfway point in the year, but we still got a solid, 4 or 5 weeks to go before we get to the midpoint in the year. It's a fun time of year. Dads and grad season, graduations, commitments, summer season, the daylight savings, vacations, travel, goodbyes. It's changing of seasons, getting ready for the fall. It's a very, very, very fantastic time of year. This is a fun way to go through it. Thank you for being here every week, Abby. And thank you out there for those who've tuned in live tonight or anybody that's watching or recording. We really appreciate you getting some value out of KloobySnacks.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Night.